Yo, what's up, guys? So, the Guilty Gear Strive beta is going to be going live in a day or two. So, what I want to do is this. I want to take a look at kind of what they've shown us so far. Or, obviously, they accidentally went live a little bit earlier than expected. So, I wanted to take a look at some of what came out of that and what we can talk about going into this beta. And then I want to do another video at the end of the beta giving my thoughts on how the gameplay was and how I feel about it after that. So, going into the beta, this is what I want to say. First of all, what we saw in Excerpt was they started to animate games in a specific way, which is outlined in a really good GDC talk, by the way, which I'll link in the description below. But that was almost kind of like a demo game for what their studio can offer and what their studio can do, right? You saw that pay off with Dragon Ball FighterZ, with Grand Blue Fighter, Fantasy Versus, and this game is no exception to that. Like, it kills it. Like, it looks incredible. Recently, they released a couple of videos, actually, on Arc System Works' YouTube account here, and the cool thing about these videos is they're like very good like intro level starter guides, right? Where they go over the characters, what they can do, specials and stuff like that. But the cool stuff is it's actually bilingual too. They're in Japanese and English. I think stuff like this is the kind of stuff that I think I really wanted to see moving forward coming off of the Excerpt era, because like I've said consistently in my videos, that's something that I want to bring up too, is with me, I think you'll find that I'm fairly consistent in this A, judgment, B, things that I want to say, or things that I want to see, rather, and how I evaluate them. Something that I've been saying ever since the Extra series era was, I don't think a lot of their weaknesses are with the actual game. I think a lot of the weaknesses of the IP come from how it's marketed, how it's advertised, or the lack thereof. And something that I thought was really important was, if you look at some of our other developers, there's a lot more interfacing with the core audience that I think is a little bit more genuine. There's more content being pushed out, stuff like that I thought was really important for them to kind of focus on. And you see, by them having these videos being pushed out, and shit, already they're closing in on, what, 100,000 views each. The big thing too is they're bilingual, Japanese and English. That's really good. A really big foot forward for them, I think, on that front, addressing some of those weaknesses that I was discussing earlier. If we want to talk about gameplay, right? Let's talk about gameplay for a second. Something that I think is really cool about the game that it's doing, and it might seem like a small feature, but I really like status effects. I think that's just cool. That was in the original GG, and they, at some point they walked away from it, but now you see them kind of re-exploring that concept. And of course, after, Persona, other games where they've had that kind of mechanic, I think it's really cool to see status effects kind of back in a big way. Now, I guess what I want to talk about is my thoughts and kind of what I'm thinking about the Discords, and also about just like what we've seen from this version of the game so far. Before I go on, what I want to say is, here on this video, I'm not telling anyone else how to think. I'm not going to get on here and call you a bitch for thinking this. What I do think is I can address a lot of, not just what my concerns are, but common things that I see people saying that I just don't think are true. The first is this. This is probably the thing that's got, I think, the most traction on social media recently. The old layout, which you can see on top, compared to the new version of the layout, which you can see in the video footage that Arc System Works published. Up until now, we've been saying, this is placeholder. It's obviously not up to industry standard. It's, it's something they'll change. It's not something worth going too ham over. But it's still, to me, I think the clock looks great. I really like the design motif around the clock as well. That gives off... It's a very, like, GG style aesthetic, I think. The font for the character names is also, I think, okay. It's not too bad. I think the rest of this, I think this is just, I still think what I said before. I think it's not up to industry standard. Very strange, very hard to look at. I don't want to go too ham on it again, because I feel like when it comes to things like UI and stuff, that's stuff that they can change before the game launches, right? Maybe it's on a lower end of the priority list right now. At this point, they touched it once, and it's still, it's so far from any level of presentation that the game has had until now. I respect that they're trying to, like, pursue new things with this game. I get that. At some point, though, I think you run into the issue where, like, are they trying to solve issues that are just general issues with fighting games? Are they trying to solve that by reinventing simple wheels through the UI? I don't know if that's the correct approach. I don't like the way it looks. I don't like the fact the portraits move with the health. That's just such a bad idea. With the character select screen, the truth is I look at this and the first thing I think is, again, like, really good button mapping system. I think it's pretty easy access, pretty easy to set your buttons. No big deals there, right? That was something that, you know, an excerpt did was pretty simple too, but something that's different about the character select screen that I think is cool is the fact that they're willing to give people information. How it's presented and how it looks outside that, I think are so obviously sterile and not attractive that I wouldn't even worry about this. I don't think that this is the final product. In the event that it is, and this is kind of the direction that they want to go in, it's so different than anything that we've seen so far. And it's not that different is bad. That's not it. I've said before, there's an identity loss here that's kind of strange. And I'm not even saying every GG character select screen looks good, because, I mean, that's just not true. It's weird for a series that kind of trademarks itself on certain styles, certain motifs. Even in Excerpt, a lot of those were kind of, I think, kind of toned down a little bit, but it was still there. And that's also part of the problem, too. I'll talk about this in another video. I hate that the previous argument that the GG vets had with Excerpt, I hate that they were stretching, I think, so hard in so many ways to try to look for ways to tear the game down, and then it turned out to be a pretty good game, all things considered. That now it takes away credibility from anybody that has any kind of criticism about this game. When, in fact, I think that some criticism is actually pretty worthwhile, and these are, you know, it's real stuff. Am I going to go too ham on the character select screen? No, but the point is, like, it's just another example of what I'm talking about. If this has already changed, then that's good. But I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt on this because it's so far from acceptable. The lobby system. This was something that I was looking forward to seeing how they changed, because I thought that the Excerpt lobby system, and especially with the kind of trajectory that Arc System Works games have had up until now, where they were kind of continuing to build on that system, right? You have your avatar in this virtual arcade, essentially, where you can sit down and play against people. Something that I think is really cool about this system is the way the floors are set up. Apparently, it's set up in a way to where the higher ranked you go, you can't play people below you, but you can play people higher than you. Right? So it works in kind of like an interesting ranking system built into the lobby. I think something like that would have been really, really cool to have implemented in the lobby system that they've currently been working, right? The system that they had before, I felt was building more and more and more towards being something super, super cool even outside the game, man. Think about the fact that, like, you know, the lobby game where you kick the balls into the lights? Stuff like that. I was like, man, put some more mini games in there. Put a scoreboard on there for the ball in the lights game. You could have people playing games like that within the game, right? That sounds hype to me. That sounds fun. Giving people stuff to do if they don't want to, you know, sit down and play at a cab or something like that, or wait for something when they're waiting. I felt like there was all this momentum and all this build up for that kind of lobby system, which I think is one of the best, to be quite honest with you. Especially in Rev 2. By the time Rev 2 comes around, that system is so, I think, well developed that if they were to continue to build on that and add on it, I think it could have been, you know, I was really looking forward to seeing that play, especially now with the news that we're going to have rollback, right? They kind of completely abandoned that for this. I always come back to this question. I don't know who this is for, but when I take this and I look at the character select screen, and I look at the UI, and look at this, and I look at what they did with the system, it's a combination of these things. You know, this looks like some Maple Story shit. I don't know what the hell this is, to be honest with you. Maybe it turns out fine. I guess we'll find out this week, you know, on the beta, when the beta goes live. But I'm definitely not a fan of them abandoning the previous system. Whenever you have this discussion, it's like, why do you care so much about the UI? Why would you attack this? These are just examples of some of the things that I've seen people saying about people talking about this. Is this what you're gonna attack? You're really gonna do the hearts bother you that much? No, it's not that one thing. But given the fact that most of us so far have not had access to playing the game, and given that this is a game series that it kind of defines itself off of its aesthetics, off of how it looks, I think it's pretty natural, I think, to look at it and judge it, you know? I think that's weird that you would... Isn't it weird that you wouldn't look at this and ask some questions? Especially right now, before most of us have had access to play it in the beta. I think it makes a lot of sense to take what you have, what you're able to look at, and you comment on that. It makes a lot of sense to comment on the game's aesthetic, especially when you consider the series, for the past 6 to 7 years, like we mentioned before, has essentially been used to showcase what they can present, how they can present, in their aesthetic sense. And when you talk about this stuff, like I said, there's a lot of common, I think, pushback where they say, like, look at this game, man. I don't care about the UI. I don't care about things like that. That's fine. It's not that I necessarily care that deeply about the UI. Again, nobody's taking away from how this game looks. It looks incredible. I mean, this kind of aesthetic, no studio is even coming close to this. But Isn't that also kind of strange? Why is a game that's pushing the envelope so much in this direction dropping the ball so hard in other ones that you would think are way simpler? After the feedback, they touched it once already, but it still looks so subpar. I think, like, now I have to get a little nervous. It's like, you know, what do they want here? I don't really understand the goals of this. And I can point out specifics, right? Like, reducing hearts for round counters. I'm whatever. It's just weird to me. I think that's strange. Having the way the burst and risk gauge is set up, I have to imagine this is placeholder and this will change, but it definitely doesn't make sense to be having that scroll alongside the life bar. But a lot of this stuff is you don't have to reinvent the wheel on this stuff. And I feel like they're trying to solve the problem that fighting games have in terms of being able to appeal to people, being able to draw in a new audience, being able to bring in people that don't have experience with these games. I don't think you solve that with UI. You don't need to graduate from the 8th grade to look at the fucking screen. Fighting games are super easy to follow because most of the time when you just look at the goddamn screen, all the information's there. Even in games that have super convoluted UIs. Bro, you can look at Melty Blood and look at the screen, bro. So it's really weird to me to see them so like self-conscious about this kind of stuff. My thing is this, it comes back to consistency with me. You cannot criticize Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite. You cannot criticize KOF 14. You cannot talk shit on those games and then be like, oh, I don't care, this is fine. KOF 14 looked shitty. I didn't have a problem with the UI, but it looked shitty. I still played it, I still had fun. MVCI, I mean, dude, we could do a whole fucking video on that. But you can't shit on those games and then look at this and say, don't worry, I'm still hyped. Don't worry about it. Hey, if you complain about this, you're a bitch. I'm hyped. I'm hyped. You can't do that. It's not about one thing either. It's the collection of really weird decisions. Again, I just have questions. I don't even really know how to explain it. It's like discomfort. So part of the reason why those games failed, just part of the reason, is because their presentation is just not attractive. They failed completely in terms of presentation. If you understand that, you can look at this game and you have to scratch your head. The fact that they've been listening to feedback, the fact that they made changes, the fact that they added rollback into the game. We're about to play a beta on delay-based netcode because they were gonna have delay-based. The fact that they've adjusted this and it still looks this bad, I think should be a red flag. And I think, is it an effort issue? Is it like because of some kind of misguided direction? I don't know what it is, but it feels like they just want it this way. And don't get me wrong, look, I think, again, I think a lot of past arguments that people have made, and I think a lot of knee-jerk reactions, they're not really good or constructive most of the time. For example, you guys remember a few months ago during EVO Japan when they debuted the air dash change, right? Air dash is at startup now. I think a lot of the Western Twitter following, they kind of took that and ran with it as like, they're dumbing down the game, blah, 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 all that. Like, yeah, there are some general toning down of system mechanics in this game, right? In actuality, it turns out that air dash change, a lot of the players that played in the exhibitions at Jaipo, they said it made it harder. It's too difficult to react to the changes in jump trajectories that you can create with it, right? You have to think about knee-jerk reactions, especially when it comes to gameplay and stuff. You have to wait and you have to give it a chance to look at it in a package. And that's something that I still encourage people to do. I think it's still worth that much, at least for me. But on the other side of that, you also can't say people are bitches for having criticism of the direction. Be that UI design, be it gameplay, whatever. I think a lot of the issues that people have brought up, while a lot kind of are knee-jerk and not really valid, some are pretty valid. You can look at it, you can trivialize the character select screen, the UI, the lobby. You can trivialize each one by one like that. But again, as a package, all of a sudden things are starting to add up now where it's just a bunch of question marks that I have. Arata said this in an interview. Take a look. Guilty Gear Strive to be published in Asia by Bandai Namco. You click the article, the game is still on pace to release in fall 2020? I thought initially Q4, but now, shit, they're saying fall 2020? I don't know if they hold to that given what's happening with COVID and stuff like that. If so, how much time really is there for them to address like remaining concerns? Make some of these changes like that. I don't know. Maybe the game gets pushed back. I think that's likely. To be honest with you, I think a lot of stuff in terms of like game development or like especially like console production, I could definitely see it getting pushed back next year. But I don't know. That's the thing, right? This is just the information that we have given as of today. It wouldn't be that strange, I think, for it to get pushed back. I hope it does. But another one that I commonly hear is, oh, this UI's fine. It's not busy or distracting. I don't really have anything to say to that other than this screenshot. 2020 fighting games. Why is this a thing? This isn't distracting to you? The big 1-8, the same color as the background, taking up 97%? That's not intrusive to you on the gameplay side in the least? Maybe it's not. Maybe it isn't, right? Maybe I'm weird. Fair enough. If I'm being weird, if I'm being a bitch, you know, I'll hold that as charge. All you care about is the UI. You don't do gameplay. Okay, let's talk about gameplay then. I still have a lot of questions on that front, and I'll talk about the stuff that I think I'm looking forward to messing around with. First question I have is, what system changes have we seen since the last time we saw the game, right? Last time we saw the game was the Jaipo exhibition, I believe. Air dash changes. You saw a few minor mechanics and system tweaks, but also some character tweaks as well. What I also want to see is what other status effects that they have, right? I talked about that earlier. Outside of Shock State, outside of the slowdown from RC, what else do they have in store? You know, is Soul going to get like a burn status effect? You know, could Zato cause fear or something like that? You know, if you play Persona recently, I think that's probably the game on most people's minds where you had to deal with those kinds of like status effects. I thought that shit was so cool. It's a really interesting gameplay element. I hope they dial it up, man. I hope it turns out pretty interesting. I really want to see how it interacts with the gameplay. The other questions I have are for FRC and defensive Roman cancel. I want to see how they play out. Defensive Roman cancel, that's something that I'm not entirely sold on. I thought that from a character balance perspective, having dead angles and being able to tweak dead angles like that is good for overall character balance, because it gives each character something unique and you can tweak it to that character's overall toolset, right? So for example, a character with a DP, you can give them a weaker dead angle or something that hits like a little bit lower. Whereas a character without a defensive or like a really strong reversal, meterless reversal, you could justify giving them a really strong dead angle, or a dead angle that reaches really high, or a dead angle that reaches very horizontal. When you make defensive Roman cancel kind of a generic effect like that, which effectively replaces dead angle, you kind of lack the ability to be able to tweak it based per character like that. I want to see how that turns out. That was something that I didn't really like with the proposed changes earlier. I still have a lot of questions for faultless defense and for instant blocking as well. To my knowledge, instant blocking still doesn't affect frame data, right? I want to see if they walk that back, because to me, if instant blocking doesn't really affect frame data like that, I don't think it's worth it. I don't think there's a point for it. You know, in this game, meter is a little bit more intensive and you can do a lot more with it. So maybe it kind of is. I really think it should affect frame data. Also risk, I want to see how it interacts with those as well. The Gatling strings, right? That was a really big change that I think caught kind of a lot of people by surprise. Few top players after their exhibition, they commented on this. I want to see how the game feels in terms of being able to make block strings and then create on-the-fly offense and those interactions with your opponent. I think naturally you're going to feel a little bit more limited. I want to see how, again, I just want to see how it feels in the package. With the corner and with the wall break and changes to the air teching system and auto-teching, I want to see how that impacts, if at all, the gameplay flow. From what I've seen, it feels like for a lot of the gameplay that I've seen is game speed doesn't feel terribly slow. It feels fast, but I'm not sure how much of that is because of the actual gameplay flow or how much of that is just because of, you know, juggernaut damage on everybody. Despite that, my question is, with this game, can this game, with their current philosophies and design, can this game be a potential jump-in point for people to get into the Guilty Gear series, for people that have never played this, to jump in, and then in subsequent versions, they build a little bit more towards old Guilty Gear? Do they want to do that? I don't know. I think it'd be nice for it to play out that way, but it's very difficult right now for me to completely buy into that. Again, my personal opinion. I wish them the best, and I hope that it does work out that way, because I think that'd be really cool. Especially given rollback netcode. And this is the thing that I want to... You have to come back to this point. Properly integrated net play is super important. You can't stress it enough, especially in this era. Especially right now. My question is this. If you have to give up all this other stuff, if you have to concede certain gameplay, player-to-player interactions in gameplay, cool design motifs, and, you know, a theme for the game's design and immersion level, if you have to give up a cool lobby system that allows you to, you know, I mean, I guess it's cool that you can make a fat bald guy in a wife beater. I guess that's cool. But to literally go into virtual game worlds, play mini games with people, play games with people, and interact with people on that level, if you have to give up all that we're talking about here, but you get rollback, and you get, of course, the visuals. Person to person, your answer is going to be different. I think it's worth it. But holy shit, why would you make me have to make that choice? Why do I have to choose that? Why can't I have everything? It's not fair. This puts me in such a position where I'm like, shit, man. This is literally the monkey's paw. It's an easy choice. It is. But why do I have to make it? If you want people to play, your game, god damn it. You know you need that. But if you have to give up all this other stuff, if you have to give up an identity, if you have to give up player-to-player interaction levels in gameplay, if you have to give up all this other stuff, it's a sacrifice, but maybe I'm greedy. I don't know. Maybe I'm greedy. What do you guys think? How do you guys feel about that? Do you think that it's fair to have to make that choice? It is what it is. Either way, that's what we're getting. But, I just wanted to do this, and again, this was how I feel going into the beta. I'm gonna play Axel, I think, the whole time. You know, maybe despite what some people think, some people think I feel. I'm still kind of looking forward to trying it out for the first time and still playing. You know, still a new fighting game. But we'll see how I feel after. I'll probably do a sit down and talk about it after. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. You know, is that a choice that you think is worth it? Do you think we should have to make it? I don't know. I'll talk to you guys later. I'll see you guys after the beta. Anybody enjoy.